Welcome to Private Banking Strategies Podcast with Vance, Lowe, and Seth Hicks, your secret weapon to protect your assets and never have to start over financially again. Vance and Seth help high net worth individuals, families, business owners, and investors structure an asset-protected, tax-free fortress for their families. Learn how to keep what you earn and use the velocity of money to create your own private banking system. Join us on this journey as we explore the secret strategies of the rich and political elite and help you take total control of your financial security. Now, on to the show.
Hey, Vance, first off, I just want to say thank you for doing this, taking your precious time. You bring a wealth of knowledge to the table, and we're really grateful to have you on board.
It's so great to be here, Gary. I really look forward. I've looked at a lot of things that you've done. I've actually had comments from some of our clients. The work you do for people is just outstanding.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. This has been so far a really good week as I've had a lot of really positive feedback comments just like that. So thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. We have interesting backgrounds, but both of us have a banking background, and I ended up branching off at our early retirement in the real estate. And it looks like you've actually taken it to the next level into the how the industry is changing in the new world of banking, where maybe we're more self-reliant and not have to rely on the big banks like we used to, So if you wouldn't mind, just kind of fill people in. When you say be the bank, what actually does that mean,
I want to take us back to what made America so powerful back in the beginning. We rose from literally nothing and became the most powerful nation on the planet. And it was because of the type of banking that we had in our country at that time. That is no longer in existence. And what we are doing, my cause, is to bring back that old style banking. So as a banker, no, I don't have that background. I could say I'm more into a cause against the way the banks are today,
yes,
and the problems that they're causing. So this is self-banking, and we're trying to bring back this old style. Did you know, Gary, that most people, when there wasn't such things as branch banking, where they kept their money, they kept them in specifically identified insurance contracts built to create the perfect private bank. They could warehouse their money there. They could get 6-7% interest guaranteed on their cash value. They could borrow the money anytime they wanted, put it back, and they did self-financing all the way through this. So this is a place to store money until you can put it to work. I think we've got a lot of things we can talk about and ideas with your successful people as they go along. Where are they going to put the money until they can put it back to work?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question, especially these days with inflation. Of course, the spinning heads want you to think it's 8.5%, but your pocketbook will tell you differently. It's much more than 8.5%. Mortgage interest rates went from 3% this time last year to over 5% now. So the stock market's down. I think NASDAQ 20%, the Dow almost 10%, and the S&P 500 about 13%. So all those things tell us, well, we've got to figure out what to do with our money to at least stay ahead of inflation, if not get ahead. I'm obviously curious because we have real estate, we have the stock market, things like that. But I'm thinking there's got to be other ways, and maybe insurance is the way to go.
All right. Well, let me go back and tell you how I kind of entered this. A little bit of my background was a financial advisor and a money manager. I would handle very large portfolios for people, and we did a great job. We didn't want to be the biggest, but we did want to be the best there was out there. So we tried hard, and we couldn't negate the risk factor in the market, the economy factor and everything else. One day, one of my clients came in and brought me a book. I don't know if you've ever had your course in life change dramatically, but he brought me this book. I read it. I immediately went into my partner and said, "Partner, that day has come." And he looked at me with a serious face and said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Remember when I brought you in and we started this company that someday you were going to make me a lot of money?" And he smiles and says, "Yeah." He said, "That day's come. You're buying me out." So that's how this thing started. This book was called Becoming Your Own Banker by R. Nelson Nash. Anybody can download this book off of Amazon.com.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, The author, R. Nelson Nash, they had a phone number, and I called his office and he actually answered the phone. And I asked him, I said, I've read your book. It really upsets me. I'm supposed to know everything there is to know about money, and I don't know any of this stuff. And he laughed. And he said, I'm not laughing at you. I hope you'll let me laugh with you. And I said, I'm also depressed. Where was this 30 years ago when me and my clients could use this? He said, Vance, you still have every opportunity for what time you have left. It just might not be big enough, as big as somebody who started a lot earlier. So this is self-banking. It's all about understanding how money works. Money only works when it's in motion. If it's sitting in accounts, it's only helping the people who actually have your money. So we try to put money in accounts like savings, mutual funds, stocks, bonds, or whatever else, hoping we can get a return. We have to take all the risk, but the people using the money will double that money on the average every 2.5 years. This is the lending world. If we finance every single thing we purchase, Gary, haven't you heard this before? You can never spend principal in order to really become wealthy. But yet, what? We all do, right?
Yep.
Everybody around us, but that's still a fact. And so in the banking world, don't the banks always get the money back? Say there, if the banks can get the money back, so can we. So we teach clients how to get 100% of their monthly expenses back every month. Now we're not spending principal. The 10% rule, always pay yourself first, okay? Store your money where someone can't take it. Are you familiar with the Dodd-Frank Act at all?
Yes, in certain aspects. Yep.
Okay, so the Dodd-Frank Act talks about bail-ins instead of bailouts. What people might not understand is when you make a deposit in a bank, ownership changes right then and there. You become an equity owner for that amount in that bank. They now own the account. If they have to seize it to shore up the bank, they can do that. And you now have stock in a worthless bank with no time frame. It's the bottom level. So we don't like that. There's a better and safer place to store money, get gain. And while the money's in there, it's guaranteed a minimum amount. Plus, these contracts I was telling you about, Gary, also make you an owner of the life insurance company. Now you own the insurance company. You get the profits. Now you can't steal from your companies, just like in real estate and everything else. If you have a company, in order for the company to exceed expectation, you don't even get a discount. You pay full price in your own company. Well, with the bank too, you don't get to borrow money and not pay it back. But if we set up our own banking system and self-finance, it's incredible. How would you like, on the average, to have and double assets totally income tax advantaged every 2.5 years? So we miss it by half. So it takes us 3 or 4 or 5. Everybody's heard of the rule of 72 in order to, double your money, right? Times the interest. Well, everyone wants you to believe that, maybe we can get 8%. Maybe we can get, more than that, but we can't. The average before taxes through my whole life is 5%. If I can average a client long-term, 5% interest, everybody's happy. We're not. Banks will double. They make today, because of factoring, about 3,000% of what we make on our deposits. There's just so much to talk about the banking. What I'd really suggest, as the people become successful and they turn their properties, explore how to put money outside the banking system into their own bank. This is what the banks don't want us to know. They can't control it. And guess what? There are no taxable events inside your economy. So I'm bouncing around a little bit, Gary, but the first thing that the Federal Reserve did when they, and I'm going to say this, they conquered our country in 1900 with the stroke of a pen and has run our country ever since. We think we vote on a president and all the politicians. They're totally controlled and run by the Federal Reserve. It was the Federal Reserve in 1913 who mandated the IRS. Also, the current Ponzi scheme, which is Social Security.
Yeah.
They required that. I've got articles around that to sell Social Security, they took out newspaper ads and put in newspaper ads. We're going to tax up to $13,000 of your annual income, and we'll never exceed that. We'll never tax anything additional. That lasted for just a few years before it's up, and now it's unlimited. But the worst thing, Gary, is that they took over the control of the education system. Now, if we understand who owns the Federal Reserve, they are not Americans. And look at the socialism and all the programs coming out of our kids today. They're not like the baby boomers, for instance. So what they took out was this old style system. Every family unit was literally independent. You look at the pioneers, the pilgrims, they'd have to go out. They didn't have stores around. They were self-sufficient or they perished. They didn't have banks, so they had to put their money someplace. So these old contracts, these are participating mutual whole life insurance carriers who are friendly to the banking system. But let's put out a little warning here. If you go try to set up this type of account and move money in and out, say with New York Life, Metropolitan, Northwest Mutual, who are fantastic companies and they have fantastic contracts, they're against self-banking. You get investigated for money laundering because it's a typical situation where if you put money in and you take it out and then you pay yourself back and move money in and out. So I hope might water the juices in our creative thinking that there might be a safer, better way to store our money and grow it. All the money inside your bank and life insurance carrier, when you go to pull money out and reinvest it in real estate, did you know that it still earns interest with the life insurance company as well?
In other words, you have a whole life policy, which means you have a cash value. So instead of borrowing from the traditional bank, like Bank of America, for example, you're now borrowing against your cash value. Am I on the right track so far?
Yes, but you don't borrow your own cash value. You borrow against it. So your cash value continues to be there earning a guaranteed rate. Now you're going to borrow from the cash reserves of the life insurance company, but you get preferred treatment because you're an owner. You get head of the line. You get two questions. How much do you want? Where do you want it sent? Nothing about payback. What are you going to use it for? None of that stuff. Okay. You will pay the interest rate that the company needs to make, on a wholesale basis so that it doesn't hurt the company and it creates the profit. Okay. Now that's the other thing is profits. All of these companies have never missed a year in profits. Think of Civil War. We're going back 150 years or more with these companies. World War I, II, all the depressions, everything else, they've never failed to pay profits. Right now, this year, they'll probably be around 3. Back in the 70s, they were up to 21%, if you can believe it, all tax advantaged. So let me give you one caveat that people probably wouldn't think about. Okay. Because everything we know about money comes from banks and they get it back. Okay. We get to spend it once and it's gone forever. We have to go back to the drawing board, re-earn additional money, pay everybody the taxes so that we can net income. In the real estate business or self-owned businesses, that could be as high as 5 to 1. Every dollar you spend at home, you got to go earn $5. Okay. Pay everybody down the line so that you can repeat. And that is the formula of what I call insanity. Just repeat. Let's not do that anymore. Let's get the money back and build from there so that every single month you're better off than you were the month before. Doesn't matter about the market. Okay, if we're into real estate, okay, real estate goes up, it comes down, and we're either buying or we're selling, okay, or we're taking income, off of our properties. I just wish, Gary, I'd have known you a lot more because I think I could have really used your services because I've been in real estate heavily almost all my life. That's where I put my money thinking that that's where I needed to be. Now, most of it, to me, this last year and this year is a sell year for me. Some commercial property and some residential income property I've been selling.
Yeah. If you're looking to sell anytime in the next 3 to 5 years, 7 years, now would probably be the time to do it.
Yeah. And it's always, I think we're always going to get complaints, whether we win or lose. But I would much rather hear the complaint that I got out a little too early than I got out too late.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's so much risk to waiting. It's pretty evident we're at or near the top of this market. It's evidenced by the fact that people have been overpaying, outbidding each other, waiving contingencies, things like that. And that's always the precursor to the bubble bursting. And on top of all that, if the stock market's down since January 1st, right? You got inflation, you got interest rates all going up, and all the ingredients are there. I wish people would sometimes turn off the television because the media wants them to keep confidence up when it comes to their pocketbook, so they keep spending. The reality is it's going to turn. We don't know. We can't tell you when, but it's going to turn. So my logic is, why wait? Why not take advantage of the market now and get top dollar? Because if you wait, prices may go down. They might stay flat, but it doesn't matter. The government is determined to raise capital gains, to raise income tax, and so you're likely to have to pay more out, by waiting and selling.
Did that story feel like it was about you? Do you feel like you are generating a lot of revenue, but are not moving forward as fast as you would like? Do you feel you should be making more progress toward your financial goals? Do you feel stuck? Let us help you get unstuck. Are you ready to take action and get your own private bank? Please visit us at www.privatebankingstrategies.com.
But maybe walk us through an example, maybe a teacher or a fireman that has a regular job, regular pension, and they're hearing this. What's maybe a case study or a practical example of how they can utilize this, how they get started, how they can leverage it to buy a piece of real estate and things like that,
All right. That's absolutely a perfect entrance into self-financing. Anybody can do this. The advantage comes from where you store the money. A lot of people will do this with credit cards. I teach people how they can, and this was years ago, how they could gain 10 rental properties and paid free and clear with a $15,000 limit credit card. They would just solely use that because you understand the tool. Well, let's finance something. Let's just take an average individual out there and they buy cars. And now it's on the back half of that loan. They owe, let's say, $10,000 and their monthly payment's $500 a month. Well, they got money sitting in a savings account. They've got money sitting over here, wherever they've got some money, and it's in those accounts trying to earn interest. They have some stocks, some mutual funds, whatever, trying to earn an interest. Well, they're missing the most lucrative opportunity possible. So let me show you what would happen. What if we woke that money up, took $10,000 and bought that debt? So there has to be we have to set up our own banking or lending company. So we do that. It's simple to set up and run. You can literally do that with a dedicated personal checking account, and that becomes your lending company's checking account. We don't use tax numbers or IDs. We don't need to. Okay. This is going to be our own personal economy. And in our economy, there are no taxable events. The money going into our economy has to have taxes paid on it. So we've got this money, taxes are paid on it. Okay. We now go to GMAC and we pay off that. We put the money into our lending company, and our lending company goes and buys that debt. Now, Gary, you have to split yourself in two. The guy in the mirror looking back at you, he's your client. If we run a personal economy, our household, then we can't steal from it. But yet the guy in the mirror has been living in our house, eating our food, driving our cars, playing with our toys and kids free. What's going to happen with this car is they're going to get a payment address change. Now, here's what happens. Let's just do the math. I'm going to put $10,000 to work. Let's say the interest on this car is 8.5%. That's pretty normal if you're not into gimmicks. Okay. Vance Lowe's lending institution would buy that debt in a heartbeat. There's three things that I know: 8.5%, $10,000 to buy the debt, $500 a month payment. If interest is of no interest to me, now I only have two numbers: the amount I've got to put to work and the monthly flow back to me. So money is made based on velocity of return. What is 500 times 12?
6,000.
Okay, so
Yep.
to calculate the volume rate of return on this loan, I would take the 6,000 and I would divide it by the money at work.
Mm-hmm.
That's a 60% annual volume rate of return. Is that high enough?
Sounds good so far.
How long would we like it to last?
Yeah, I'd like that forever. Yeah.
It's not about getting the 10,000 back. It's about getting all the money back on cars until I have to assign it to something else. So over a 5-year period of time, that becomes $30,000,
Mm-hmm.
right? If my math is correct.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not why people come to me. That's not the banking power. The power comes from when that $6,000 comes back, what do you do with it?
Mm-hmm.
If you turn around and buy more debt at the same rate of return, that generates an additional $3,600. So I've got 6,000 in year one. In year two, I've got 6,000 and 3,600.
Mm-hmm.
And in year three, I've got 6,000, 36, and 36. You see, I'm putting each $6,000 and buying more debt. That alone puts it at over $70,000 back in hand in 5 years. Now, how hard did I have to work to do that?
Yeah, not very hard.
Okay. How much risk did I take?
I'd say to the consumers, I don't see any risk there.
The only risk is that guy looking back at you in the mirror. Now, if he's a shady character, we all got problems, okay?
Mm-hmm.
He's got to make his payment. But what if we make a mistake? How hard would it be to renegotiate that loan since your lending company owns it? You see what I'm saying? It's the flow of money that's critical. Just because it's in your own circle doesn't make it less beneficial than someone else's circle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In your circle, it's much more private. There are no taxable events. You end up with $70,000 at the end of 5 years, no taxes, because it all was generated within the velocity inside your own little economy. And they don't want you to know that you can run your own economy. Another word for economy. Did you know that the education system back before 1913, schools literally would teach kids, families, education system on how to go out and start your own economy. In other words, start your own town. So how do you run a town? You attract money. You want that money to stay in town, and you want that money to move all over town. So how many times can we use a dollar in town? How many times can you use the same dollar over and over again in your own personal economy? And that's how we grow from a $10,000 money at work to $70,000 without tax. Every time it stops, Gary, you get a new dollar's worth of product or services. This is private banking. So I hope we've generated a little bit of interest. We have what we call a red pill book, and it's free. They can just go on the website and download it. It tells a little bit more about my history, but it gives a good snapshot of what can happen with private banking.
Okay. What's the name of that book?
The name of the book is What the Banks Don't Want You to Know, and you can download the hard copy or an audio version. So because of real estate, there's one more aspect that we do here, and that is we have 7 pillars of what we call protection. All this real estate that I personally own is low-hanging fruit for somebody that wants to come take it away from me. So we protect that. Equity stripping, all kinds of things to protect that. I've got a ranch that I originally bought it for $50,000. I've got a lien against it for $500,000. I just so happen to own the company that has that lien, along with my house, along with all my other investment properties. We've equity stripped out, and they filed a lien so that there's no equity. Nobody can do that. And so it's good asset protection that we also provide for people who own what we call low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. And there was one thing I did read about, I want to ask, I know we're getting probably close on time here, but in the world of banking and money, there's now, of course, cryptocurrency. It's been out for a dozen or so years, and now it's really been getting a lot of attention particularly the last year, and everybody's asking about it. How do you keep your crypto and the other wealth, like what you were just describing there with your, like the house and the car and all that? Are you basically getting a bigger whole life policy or a separate policy, or is there trust involved, or how does that part work when it comes to other wealth like crypto?
Okay, we are very heavily involved with many, many clients that are millionaires in crypto and where it's at right now and where it's going. There are two strategies we help people provide. Anyone listening can log into the website and they can get an analysis. We can show them with their numbers what it will look like if they do the strategy versus staying the way they are, side by side. It is a true comparison because it's only math, no projections. For crypto, there's the second windfall. And for your guys, it's also a second windfall or a second strategy called the windfall strategy. What happens when large sums of money comes in? How can you get that in? Because you can't dump it in a life insurance contract all at once, or it becomes a modified endowment, which means traceable and taxable. Well, in crypto, most of us want to be private. The banks aren't very friendly to the money there. And so trusts are involved. I am not that expert, okay? I use these guys to do my crypto. And so I would recommend people, if they're not under the tutelage of someone, if they're not their own experts, then maybe they should, like Gary, like you, or me for banking. Find out what that is. So it's a series of contracts. Did you know you can have contracts not on your life, these life insurance contracts?
I did learn that when I was married. You could have a contract on your spouse, for example, and
spouse, kids, grandkids. I now have in my banking system 16 contracts. Nelson Nash, and this is something you guys could really look at, the Nelson Nash Institute, ibc.org is, and you can get all kinds of good information. But my guru who sent me to initially teach me had 153 policies that he owned. Of course, not on his life. Okay. I've only got 2 on my life. The rest are on family life and partners and anyone I can get an insurable interest, because your bank grows. You're limited with each contract on how you set it up. And once you outgrow that, you just do another one, another one. And we have a way to multiply somebody's total insurable interest. Each person has a limit based on income, how much insurance companies will issue. We don't really care about the death benefit in this scenario because it's the least we want to go after. But if we exceed that, will somebody else write us more insurance? Well, if you do it right, the answer is yes. If you do it wrong, the answer is no. So yeah, it can happen.
Okay. Well, that's really good news, especially for a lot of people listening. I know there's a lot of business owners that follow our podcast. And of course, most of them are also investing in real estate or would like to. They're not all business owners. We have a lot of professionals, actually some professionals who are also business owners, but information like this gives us hope. It's, we're basically using what the world offers in a way of different products and services and utilizing the good parts of the IRS code, Internal Revenue Code, so that we can keep more of what we make and build and do it correctly, So what's next? How can people get a hold of you? We got the website, bankingstrategies.com. You mentioned the book, but is there you have your own podcast? Like, what's the best, if somebody wanted to learn more about this, what's the best thing they could do?
Yeah, just go on the website. There's a little questionnaire if people want to put their numbers in. We will do a free 8-year analysis. We'll have a phone call to go over it. We'll set up a webinar to go over that analysis. We'll record that analysis and send it to people.
Okay.
Then, in other words, we like to have people test drive this before they decide, hey, I want this strategy. So downloading the books, reading that, listening to the podcast, most people, referrals that we get come in off of our website saying, look, I've done it all. I'm ready to go. How do I get started? Versus, what is this all about? So that would probably be the recommendation. And just getting more information, Gary, maybe to you. Love this opportunity to talk to people.
I know people personally that do this. In fact, I took classes to be able to do this, so I understand it. And I think it's an excellent strategy. It doesn't matter if you're 20 or 60, I mean, the different circumstances, of course, but you can use this. In fact, probably the sooner you start, the better. And if you're an agent, check it out for yourselves to see how you can make this part of your business model. And if you're an investor, now you know where to go get yourself an investor agent.
Did that story feel like it was about you? Do you feel you should be making more progress toward your financial goals? Do you feel stuck? Let us help you get unstuck. Are you ready to take action and get your own private bank? Please visit us at www.privatebankingstrategies.com.
Thank you for listening to the Private Banking Strategies Podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available.